Kun Béla, born on February 20, 1886, in the small town of Szambathely in Hungary, grew up during a time of great political and social upheaval. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were marked by the decline of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the rise of new political ideologies that would change Europe. Kun Béla's life would become deeply intertwined with the revolutionary movements of the time, and he would eventually become one of the most controversial figures in Hungary's history. Kun Béla was born into a middle-class family, and from a young age, he showed a strong interest in education and intellectual pursuits. He attended secondary school in Szambathely, where he excelled in his studies. Later, he went on to study law at the University of Budapest, where his interest in political theory and social justice grew. It was during his university years that Kun Béla was first exposed to socialist and Marxist ideas, which would shape his worldview for the rest of his life. In the early 1900s, Hungary was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, a multi-ethnic state that was ruled by the Habsburg monarchy. The empire was marked by a rigid social hierarchy, with the aristocracy holding most of the power and wealth, while the working class and peasants lived in poverty. The ideas of Karl Marx, who argued for the overthrow of capitalist systems and the creation of a classless society, resonated with Kun Béla, as he began to see the suffering of ordinary workers and the inequalities of the system. After completing his law degree, Kun Béla became increasingly involved in left-wing politics. He joined various socialist and communist groups and began to work closely with other like-minded intellectuals and activists. His political activism soon took him beyond Hungary's borders, as he traveled through Europe, particularly to Russia, where he witnessed the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. The revolution, which saw the overthrow of the Russian Tsarist government and the establishment of a communist state under the leadership of Vladimir Lenin, had a profound impact on Kun Béla. He was inspired by the success of the Bolsheviks and their ability to seize power and implement socialist policies. During this time, Kun Béla began to believe that Hungary, too, needed a revolution to address the growing discontent among its working class and peasants. In 1918, the end of World War I and the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire created a power vacuum in Hungary. The monarchy was dismantled, and the country was in political turmoil. The old social order was in crisis, and many Hungarians were looking for a new direction. Kun Béla seized this moment of uncertainty to push for a socialist revolution. He and his followers began organizing workers and intellectuals to rally behind the idea of establishing a socialist government. In October 1918, Hungary became a republic, and a new democratic government was established. However, the country remained deeply divided, and radical political movements, including communism, gained ground. Kun Béla's influence grew as he worked to unite the various socialist factions. In March 1919, Kun Béla and the Hungarian Communist Party seized power in Budapest. They established the Hungarian Soviet Republic, a communist government that aimed to implement radical socialist reforms. Kun Béla was named the leader of this new government, and he quickly set about implementing his vision of a socialist state. One of the first measures taken by the new government was the nationalization of major industries and land. Kun Béla sought to redistribute wealth and power from the aristocracy and the bourgeoisie to the working class and the peasants. The government also implemented a series of social reforms, including labor rights and education policies, designed to improve the lives of ordinary people. Despite these ambitious reforms, the Hungarian Soviet Republic faced immediate challenges. The new government was opposed by a number of powerful groups, including right-wing nationalists, military forces, and former aristocrats. Hungary's neighbors, including Romania and Czechoslovakia, also viewed the Soviet Republic with hostility and sent military forces to support anti-communist factions. Additionally, Hungary was facing severe economic difficulties after the war, including food shortages, high inflation, and social unrest. Kun Béla's government struggled to maintain control. The country was beset by internal divisions, as different factions within the left-wing movement had competing visions for the future. The Hungarian Soviet Republic was also unable to establish a strong base of support outside the capital, Budapest, where the majority of the population remained hostile to the new government. The situation worsened in July 1919 when the Romanian army entered Hungary, defeating Kun Béla's forces and taking control of much of the country. Kun Béla and his government were forced to retreat, and the Soviet Republic collapsed in August 1919, after just over 4 months in power. Kun Béla fled to Vienna and then to the Soviet Union, where he continued to be involved in communist activities. The fall of the Hungarian Soviet Republic marked the end of Kun Béla's brief and turbulent political career in Hungary. However, his legacy continued to be debated in the years that followed. Some saw him as a visionary leader who sought to bring about social justice and equality in a country that had long been divided by class and privilege. Others viewed him as a failure, whose revolution had led to chaos, bloodshed, and economic ruin. After his exile in the Soviet Union, Kun Béla lived a life of relative obscurity. He continued to be involved in left-wing politics and maintained close ties with other communist leaders, including those in the Soviet Union. He wrote articles and speeches advocating for socialism and revolution, but he never returned to Hungary. His influence waned over the years, and he became increasingly critical of the direction that Soviet communism was taking under Joseph Stalin. Kun Béla died in the Soviet Union on August 29, 1938, at the age of 52. His death marked the end of the life of a man who had once been at the center of one of Hungary's most ambitious political experiments. Despite the failure of the Hungarian Soviet Republic, Kun Béla's ideas and actions continued to have an impact on Hungary's political landscape. In the years that followed, the memory of Kun Béla and the Hungarian Soviet Republic became a subject of intense debate. Under communist rule in Hungary after World War II, Kun Béla was sometimes celebrated as a revolutionary hero, while in other periods, particularly under anti-communist governments, he was vilified as a symbol of failed revolution. Kun Béla remains a polarizing figure in Hungarian history. For some, he represents the idealism and hopes of the early 20th century socialist movements, while for others, he symbolizes the dangers of radical politics and the failures of revolutionary governments. His life and work are a reminder of the turbulent political struggles of the early 20th century and the complex nature of historical memory. Despite the mixed views on his legacy, Kun Béla's place in Hungarian history is undeniable. His brief tenure as leader of the Hungarian Soviet Republic may have been short, but it represented a moment of great possibility for Hungary, one in which a new social order was imagined and briefly attempted. The lessons of Kun Béla's life, and of the Hungarian Soviet Republic, continue to shape Hungary's understanding of its past and its ongoing political struggles.